Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to dive into a tragic case. In November 2023, the former Minister of National Economy of Kazakhstan, 44-year-old Quandyq Bishimbaev, committed a terrible act against his wife, 31-year-old Saltanat. He tried desperately to cover his tracks, hoping to pass off this horrific crime as some kind of accident.
Я не считал, что пощечина или может причинить.
However, the story quickly gained widespread attention. Saltanat's family pushed for a completely open trial, and now millions of people across Kazakhstan and around the world are following the case closely. Interestingly, a few years ago, Bishimbaev was found guilty of taking large bribes multiple times. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but served only 1 year before he was released. Many people were certain that, once again, the ex-minister would use his influence and money to escape harsh punishment. No one doubted his guilt, but the question on everyone's mind was what sentence he would actually face. To truly understand this case, we need to look back to see where it all began and consider whether this tragedy could have been avoided. This requires us to explore the complicated history of the couple's relationship and learn more about their backgrounds. We'll also examine the details of Bishimbaev's trial and why he specifically requested a jury trial. Quandyq Bishimbaev was born on April 11, 1980, in Kyzyloda, which was part of the Kazakh SSR. He was the oldest of 2 children in the family. His father, Quandyq Bishimbaev, was a member of parliament, while his mother, Almira, became an entrepreneur in the 1990s. Before her son's arrest, Almira owned several large companies. But in 2024, she quickly transferred most of her assets to relatives, keeping them within the family. Back in 2018, when her son was first accused of corruption, she served as his public defender, even calling the 12-year sentence he faced the destruction of her son's life. Quandyq grew up with his younger sister, Aruzhan, who was born in 1984. He pursued higher education rigorously, earning 3 degrees, first from the Kazakh Academy of Management, then from TEZ University, and finally, he was awarded a presidential scholarship to study at George Washington University in the United States. At 26, he completed his PhD in economic sciences. In 2000, Quandyq began his career as a bank manager. He briefly interned at the Ministry of Economy, later taking senior roles in large companies. In 2016, he returned to the ministry and became the Minister of Economy himself, one of the youngest high-ranking officials in Kazakhstan at the time. However, after just 8 months, he was caught in a major scandal and was arrested for taking large bribes. Bishimbaev was sentenced to 10 years but was released on parole after serving just 1 year, thanks to a personal apology to then-President Nurlan Nazarbayev, who subsequently pardoned him. Before meeting Saltanat, Quandyq had been married twice. His first wife was Ajarim Rova, whom he married in 1999 when he was still a student. In 2000, they had a son named Alexander Valikan, but the marriage ended in 2004. In 2006, while working as an advisor to the Minister of Economy and Budget Planning in Kazakhstan, Quandyq married again. His second wife was Nazim Karman, with whom he shared 14 years of marriage and 3 children. In 2020, Nazim initiated their divorce. Saltanat, born on May 15, 1992, in Pavloda in northern Kazakhstan, was the youngest of 2 children in a successful family. Her father, Amangeldy Nenov, was a businessman, and her mother, Juma Gaul, an economist. Her uncle, Kirat Nenov, had a remarkable career in politics and led regional departments of entrepreneurship and trade, as well as the cities of Istus and Aksu. As a young girl, Saltanat developed a serious interest in astrology. She studied it deeply, creating horoscopes and natal charts for her friends and classmates. To everyone's surprise, her predictions were often accurate. Saltanat eventually decided to turn her hobby into a full-time career. She promoted her astrology services on social media, providing online and personal consultations, short-term and long-term forecasts, and offering guidance on personal growth, career choices, and spiritual development. Her clients were primarily women, and she offered advice on love, relationship compatibility, and self-discovery. Saltanat soon became financially independent, earning well by doing what she loved. Her popularity grew as more people sought her advice, and she booked months in advance. She had achieved the life she'd dreamed of, doing meaningful work that she enjoyed. In the spring of 2022, Quandyq stumbled upon Saltanat's social media page and was instantly captivated by her beauty. He decided to contact her, requesting an astrological consultation. However, Saltanat turned him down, explaining that she only provided services to women. But Quandyq's interest only grew. He kept trying to get Saltanat's attention, complimenting her and even attempting to play on her sympathy, insisting that only she could help him as a trusted specialist. Though flattered, Saltanat continued to refuse him, offering only online consultations, which Quandyq rejected. For months, he continued to persist, finding out more and more about her life, where she lived, who her friends were, where she spent her time. Although Saltanat told her friends about this persistent admirer, she refused to meet him. Finally, she agreed to a face-to-face meeting for a business consultation. Quandyq was courteous, polite, and seemed to make every effort to impress her. But that was only the beginning. In a private conversation with her brother, Saltanat mentioned that she didn't see Quandyq as her type and didn't think they'd work out. At first, her family and friends weren't overly concerned, as they knew Saltanat to be strong and independent, fully able to handle herself. But a month later, things took a turn. Quandyq, determined to win her over, sought permission to speak with Saltanat's grandmother, hoping to gain her blessing. He said he wanted to speak with her family in case Saltanat ever decided to marry him, since her grandmother might not be around for long. This gesture touched Saltanat, yet she still resisted entering a relationship with him. In the fall of 2022, Saltanat visited her parents in Pavloda and mentioned that she wasn't expecting any big changes in her personal life. She admitted to her brother that she felt unsure about the 12-year age gap between her and Quandyq Bishimbaev. She wasn't attracted to him, and according to her astrological readings, they weren't a good match. But less than a month after that visit, her brother saw a post on social media where Saltanat announced that Quandyq had proposed to her, and she had happily accepted. This news stunned the entire family, as it was a complete surprise. Her friends were just as shocked, especially since she had recently told them that he wasn't her ideal match, and that nothing serious would come of it. In December 2022, only a few months after meeting, the couple held a lavish wedding celebration in one of the most popular venues in Astana. It's worth noting that they did not officially register their marriage. They went through a marriage ceremony in a mosque, but did not register it with the civil authorities, meaning they were considered civil partners, not officially married. Around this time, Saltanat's attitude toward Quandyq changed drastically. She frequently told her friends about how smart, educated, and well-spoken he was. She admired how he could easily join in on any conversation. Saltanat even defended him in the corruption case that had briefly sent him to prison, claiming he had been framed and punished for someone else's crime. From the outside, the couple seemed happy. Quandyq often gifted her with presents, and she called him her golden husband, saying she'd never regret marrying him. Friends were genuinely happy for her, believing she was truly fortunate. But the happiness didn't last long. After the wedding, the couple moved in with Quandyq's parents. His parents lived on the first floor, while Saltanat and Quandyq settled upstairs. Quandyq's mother, Almira, tried her best to make Saltanat feel welcome, often giving her gifts and excusing her from house chores. But Almira couldn't shield Saltanat from her son. Saltanat would visit her parents with Quandyq but wouldn't invite them to her home, as it often annoyed Quandyq and led to arguments. At first, her family didn't know about these issues. However, less than a month after the wedding, on New Year's Eve, Saltanat's brother, Aybek, came to visit and witnessed a disturbing incident. A festive table had been set for a small family gathering. When Quandyq's cousin and his wife arrived and brought gifts for everyone, Saltanat, feeling embarrassed for not having a return gift, decided to give the cousin's wife a bottle of expensive perfume that Quandyq had bought her the day before, which she hadn't yet opened. This simple gesture, however, enraged Quandyq. He began yelling that she had no right to give away something he had bought, calling her names and insulting her. The guests, sensing the tension, quickly left. When Saltanat's parents tried to stand up for her, Quandyq rudely dismissed them. In a fit of anger, he even overturned the table, ruining the New Year's celebration. Aybek was stunned by what he witnessed and didn't know how to respond. The next day, in a phone call, Saltanat admitted to her brother that Quandyq's behavior had changed significantly after the wedding, but she didn't understand why. She hoped it was just a phase and that things would improve. Her brother urged her to come back home and leave the relationship, but Saltanat firmly refused. 2 months after the New Year's incident, Saltanat suddenly sent her brother some selfies showing terrible bruises on her face, asking him not to ask questions about them. Worried, her brother tried to reach her, but when she didn't pick up, he called her husband. Quandyq agreed to meet him but simply told Saltanat's brother to stay out of it and refused to explain the bruises. He didn't even say where she was, which left her brother with the worst feelings. Luckily, Saltanat was later found at her parents' country home, as she had her own set of keys. Despite her family's pleas to stay, Saltanat returned to her husband, saying she loved him and was willing to do anything to save their marriage. For a short while, her husband treated her kindly, giving her gifts and promising to change. They even took a trip to a popular resort in the Maldives and appeared happy. However, photos from that vacation were later used as evidence in court, because they revealed bruises on Saltanat's body and clear fingerprints on her wrists as though she had been forcefully held. Saltanat's brother, Aybek, shared that neither he nor their parents heard any complaints from her after that trip. Still, her drastic weight loss, her closed-off attitude, and her change in clothing style, which seemed aimed at hiding bruises, hinted at ongoing abuse. She even stopped taking on new clients and holding consultations, choosing only to post photos with her husband online, saying how lucky she was to have him. As it turned out, Quandyq had forbidden Saltanat from doing her work, which cut off her income and left her fully dependent on him. He also controlled her movements and interactions, not letting her meet friends without his approval or even visit cafes alone. He checked her phone messages and calls. To the outside world, Quandyq acted like a loving and caring husband, and most of Saltanat's friends were unaware of what was happening, even admiring what appeared to be a perfect family. In private, Saltanat confided in a close friend, sharing how her husband completely controlled her life. He had forbidden her to work and even to communicate with her parents without his permission. He was extremely jealous, often accusing her of cheating and beating her as a result. Shocked, her friend advised Saltanat to leave him immediately, but Saltanat reacted strongly, saying she wasn't asking for advice, she just needed someone to listen. The couple even tried counseling, but Quandyq rejected all of Saltanat's suggestions, instead bringing in his own therapist who convinced her that she was the one at fault. In her last conversation with her brother, Saltanat expressed her suspicion that this therapist was hired to humiliate and weaken her further. By summer 2023, Saltanat tried to escape and moved in with her parents for a short while. But within a week, Quandyq came to get her, pleading for one last chance to save their marriage. He offered to move to a new home, and Saltanat thought that a change might help. She also hoped that having a child together might improve his behavior, though she was unable to get pregnant. In October, Saltanat made one last attempt to leave her husband, moving to a rented apartment that her brother quickly helped her find. But within 10 days, she returned to Quandyq and even renewed their marriage vows in a mosque. She shared this with her family herself. On November 5th, Saltanat invited her parents, brother, and a few close friends to a restaurant owned by Quandyq's cousin, Bayktan Bishimbaev. They were there to celebrate her reunion with her husband. That evening, Quandyq was attentive and affectionate, promising to protect her and never let her go. Everyone at the table believed in his sincerity and thought the worst was over. But the tragedy was just days away. On November 9th, Saltanat's brother, Aybek, came home from work, going about his usual routine, when he received a sudden, alarming phone call. A relative, sounding frightened, asked him if the shocking news spreading online was true. Confused, he asked her to clarify, and she sent him a link to a news article. The headline stated that the former Minister of Economy had killed his young wife. Aybek was shaken by the news but found it hard to believe. Just the day before, he had spoken to his sister. She had mentioned, once again, that she was planning to leave her husband. She'd even asked if she could stay with him for a while, and he had told her she was welcome anytime, letting her know where to find the spare key to his place. But Saltanat hadn't shown up that night, nor did she answer her phone the next day. Worried, Aybek rushed to her house, but no one was there. Her husband wasn't answering his phone either, and the whole situation felt increasingly alarming. Determined to find answers, Aybek decided to go to the family restaurant where Saltanat had last reached out to her relatives. As he drove, he received another call, this time from his parents, who had also seen the news online. They were desperate to know what had really happened. But Aybek, still without answers himself, could only tell them he would find out soon. When he finally arrived at the restaurant, he saw numerous police officers on the scene. Learning that Saltanat's brother had arrived, they first expressed their condolences, gently telling him that his sister couldn't be saved and had already passed away by the time medics arrived. Aybek couldn't believe what he was hearing. It felt like a terrible mistake, a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. But, tragically, the news was true. By the time Saltanat's brother arrived, Quandyq had already been arrested as the main suspect and taken to the police station. He strongly denied any guilt, insisting that what happened was a terrible accident and that he had only tried to help his wife. Quandyq's brother, Bishimbaev, the restaurant owner, was also detained on suspicion of helping to cover up the crime. At first, Quandyq's lawyer argued that his client was entirely innocent, pointing out the lack of evidence. However, it soon became clear that Quandyq and his brother had attempted to destroy evidence by deleting video footage from cameras inside and outside the restaurant. Specialists, however, managed to recover the recordings, and what was captured on film shocked everyone involved. The investigation lasted nearly 4 months, during which Quandyq continued to claim his innocence, behaving as though he was sure he wouldn't face punishment. Still, the charges of murder with particular cruelty stood. Forensic experts who examined Saltanat's body were appalled by the extent of her injuries, noting that she had likely been beaten over a long period, with almost no unbruised areas left on her face or body. Quandyq's lawyers tried to downplay his role, with Quandyq claiming that Saltanat was drunk and had caused most of her injuries herself by repeatedly falling and hitting her head on tiles, the toilet, and other furniture. Reconstructing the events of that night on November 8, 2023, investigators found that the couple had attended a concert with friends. They had a fierce argument at the event, although friends couldn't clearly explain the cause due to the loud music. They left the concert abruptly without telling anyone. The couple went to the restaurant, where they continued their argument in a private VIP cabin. Surveillance footage showed Quandyq taking several bottles of alcohol from the bar and going into the booth with Saltanat. During their argument, Saltanat told him she couldn't continue in the relationship and was leaving him. This enraged Quandyq, who began yelling and even slapped Saltanat. She called her brother, saying she planned to stay at his place because she had decided to leave her husband. Around midnight, she went outside, intending to head to her brother's, but Quandyq caught up with her and continued arguing. The security footage showed them arguing for about 15 minutes before Quandyq convinced her to go back inside. The argument continued in the entrance area before they moved back into the VIP cabin. Unfortunately, there were no cameras inside, so the details of what happened next are uncertain. Footage from the hallway camera showed Saltanat trying to stay calm and maintain distance, while Quandyq repeatedly tried to approach her, grabbing her hands, shaking her, and pressing her against the wall. In court, his lawyer even described these actions as affectionate gestures. Saltanat eventually tried to escape by locking herself in the restroom, but Quandyq began kicking the door to force his way in, leaving visible damage. When she opened the door, he immediately struck her multiple times, accusing her of living off his money and claiming that he had given her everything she owned. What happened next is difficult to confirm. Quandyq claimed that Saltanat got upset, undressed herself, and flushed her jewelry down the toilet, saying she didn't need anything from him. Another version suggested that Quandyq forced her to undress to humiliate her. After the jewelry went down the drain, Quandyq became enraged, hitting Saltanat multiple times and pushing her hard, causing her to hit her head on the toilet. In court, he argued that she was drunk and fell on her own while undressing, hitting her head on the tiles and fixtures. According to Quandyq, they intended to leave the restaurant, but he didn't want to call a cab because he was embarrassed by her disheveled appearance, wearing only a coat over her underwear. So, they returned to the VIP cabin. Soon after, they tried to leave again, but Saltanat paused to look in the mirror, seeing her injured face. Quandyq then pushed her toward the exit, which escalated into a brutal beating. He hit her with his hands and feet, dragged her by her hair and, around 7 o'clock in the morning, pulled her back into the VIP cabin by her hair. There, he continued his assault. Although he claimed that Saltanat fell and hit the floor and furniture on her own, he also said that after she lay on the sofa, he noticed a bruise on her face and became concerned. Instead of calling an ambulance, however, he called a fortune teller to ask if Saltanat was all right. The fortune teller told him that she was simply drunk and needed rest, so Quandyq left her alone. He claimed to have heard what sounded like snoring, which he later learned was actually her dying breaths. Toward noon, when he realized Saltanat was no longer breathing, he called his brother Bakan, asking him to come immediately. Together, they sent away the staff, closed the restaurant to visitors, and deleted the footage from all the cameras. At the trial, Bakan claimed he believed Quandyq's story that Saltanat was just sleeping, and he agreed to delete the recordings, thinking they showed her in an embarrassing state. An ambulance was only called later that evening, by which point Saltanat's body was already cold and rigor mortis had set in. According to Bakan, he tried to perform resuscitation, but it was no use. Saltanat had already passed away hours earlier. During the investigation, Quandyq's former wife and mother of his 3 children, Nazim, was brought under the spotlight. Years earlier, when Quandyq faced corruption charges, she had publicly defended him. But shortly after his release, she filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and claiming she'd outgrown the marriage. However, after his brutal murder accusation, Nazim gave a candid interview, revealing that he was indeed capable of such cruelty. She shared that after their second child was born in 2011, Quandyq became increasingly aggressive and self-centered, demanding the world revolve around him. He openly cheated on her, with multiple mistresses. Nazim only learned the extent of his affairs when police accessed his phone data in 2017. Following his pardon, Quandyq's violent behavior worsened, and during a minor argument, he ripped a toilet lid from its hinges and threw it at her. She managed to dodge, but it marked the end of their marriage. In her view, Quandyq initially hid his dark side from her, knowing she wouldn't tolerate it. But with Saltanat, Nazim believed he had deliberately chosen someone he could dominate, pushing her boundaries until he felt he could treat her however he wished. The trial began in March 2024, with Saltanat's family insisting on full public access, fearing Quandyq would use his influence to manipulate the outcome. Quandyq requested a jury trial, as a life sentence would only be given if every juror and the judge agreed, a slim chance he was willing to take. Throughout the sessions, Quandyq denied premeditated murder, claiming the events were a tragic accident. Surveillance footage showed otherwise, but initially, the case was classified under domestic violence, which typically carries a light sentence in Kazakhstan. Public outcry led to stricter domestic violence laws in April 2024. Quandyq repeatedly painted Saltanat as unstable, blaming her for provoking him and downplaying the violence as mere arguments. Despite this, video evidence of his aggressive actions was clear. He even attempted to pressure his brother, Bakan, to give false testimony. Bakan requested protection from Quandyq's influence, which the court granted. On May 13, 2024, Quandyq was found guilty of severe bodily harm, torture, and murder. He received 20 years for murder and an additional 7 years for battery, totaling 24 years. His brother Bakan, who helped cover up the crime, was sentenced to 4 years. Though Saltanat's family had hoped for a life sentence, they acknowledged that 24 years, given Quandyq's age, was effectively a life term. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more unbelievable stories.